And when I look out from any window, I want to be able to tell apart all the cloud variations and what they mean for the upcoming weather. I spoke to a Canadian meteorologist I met when I was traveling in the Netherlands and asked her about weather prediction accuracy. It is well known that weather can be predicted, but no more than 10 days ahead, 10 days at a time. And what happens when we cannot predict even that? When there are incorrect forecasts? Why is it this way? Where lies the error? She explained that weather is most easy to predict when it is similar to the days prior. It becomes harder when there are more variations ahead. As I record this, no pun intended, there might be some forecasts indicating that I might be changing jobs and move to the city Sollefteå in Sweden. Nothing is decided. I just did some basic research. The municipality has a nice website where the citizens share their stories about occupations and hobbies. I, of course, clicked the story about the pilot. He recalls a time, about, I'm guessing 15 years ago, when they would fly from Sollefteå to Stockholm to eat pizza and then go home again, which was a much cheaper hobby back then. These days, it is much more costly with fuel and administration. As he puts it, there is no rush to this hobby because 1 hour in the air costs 500 Swedish crowns and fixed fees in addition to that. The pilot telling his story is today part of Sollefteå Flygklubb, an aviation association with 2 aircrafts. One of them is a UL aircraft, meaning ultralight, and the model is TL3000 Sirius, like the star. UL meaning ultralight, that is the type of aircraft he used for his pizza travels to southern Sweden. Such an aircraft is a particular class with severe weight restrictions. The pilot says UL aircrafts also come with many advantages. They are cheap to operate. The Aviation Association can service and maintain the plane themselves. And why would one want to become a member of an aviation association? His reasons are beautiful. The freedom in the air and the fantastic views. Meanwhile, I also found the websites of aircrafts that are not yet here, they're being produced. In the future, according to one of these websites, we will be able to fly at supersonic speed more often. This company argues that they believe that life is better lived in person. I assume they mean less in front of a screen. So what today is a 3 days long business trip can be shortened to 1 with their services. I imagine overall that we might expect more airborne vehicles in the future, and with them there will be more noise, especially if they are supersonic. It is just natural to think that it will be more attractive to seek and live in and visit areas where no airplanes or similar noise pollutants are crossing. You of course have seen clips or maybe witnessed yourself the famous cloud formed behind an aircraft that enters supersonic speed mode. This typical cloud is simply a vapor cone, actually. But if you want to be cooler, it can also be called mash diamond, spelled mash, M-A-C-H, but with a capital letter. Another name for the vapor cone is shock collar or a shock egg. This particular kind of human-made cloud are near the speed of sound, typically 343 meters per second at sea level. The speed of sound is dependent on the temperature of the surroundings. Well, the air. I imagine that at some point, when we will have more airplanes that create the clouds, when the planes boom into supersonic velocity, that someone will use these clouds synchronized into an artwork above the horizon using the effect of Fata Morgana. I have of course seen this before, but I learned the name Fata Morgana this year and looked deeper into the description. It is a mirage visible in a narrow band above the horizon, reflecting and inverting the image of an object, making a ship passing by in the distance, looking like it is twice its size and with vague, fast-moving contours. And Fata Morgana aside, look, we're touching the clouds ourselves. This is a very special moment. As a child, I used to think if I reached out my hand now, I would be able to feel something as soft as cotton, and that I will be able to take a piece of the cloud with me down to the ground. Fata Morgana supposedly originates from Morgan Le Fay, a fairy with superpowers from the legend of King Arthur. So, imagine several synchronized clouds formed from supersonic movement above the horizon in conditions optimal for a Fata Morgana. That must be an extraordinary view and very loud, not very fairy tale-like at all, but a work of art you will never forget. A name to not forget. Christine Darden. She is 83 now. She wrote computer programs to predict sonic booms at space rocket launches at NASA. Another very interesting meeting happened when I was in Poland in November. I was in the city of Wrocław in the southwest and noticed there were two cathedrals standing side by side, which I thought must have caused a great deal of confusion back in the days. So I asked a bypasser if she knew the history of the island where the two cathedrals were standing, and also if she knew anything about the man with a special profession to lit the gas lamps surrounding the cathedrals every evening and turning them off every morning. She laughed at this. Apparently, we tourists have the same questions. We all want to know, when does this mysterious man go on vacation, if he is allowed to do so at all? Amazingly, the stranger and I ended up talking for 1.5 hours right there on the spot. We talked about the role of the church in the modern Polish society. We talked about banks. She was working at a bank. And after a while, I figured that we had the exact same interests. This is very rare and very special when you meet someone randomly on the street. So I just assumed we must have everything in common. I asked her if she liked castles. She of course did. She would spend a couple of her summer nights in castle hotels. The same night, she sent me a particular castle map that she had designed herself to help me optimize my planned castle route for the following day. And when we had met, I kept on asking, "Do you like airplanes?" And of course she did. So we were discussing what is the easiest way to get a pilot license today. I do not yet have the answer to that, but I proposed her to specialize in electrical airplanes if she was considering taking a license, and maybe the Green Flight Academy in Sweden might interest her. They unfortunately do not do long travel distances yet. A niche now, but they will be very useful in the future. Reasonable question. How far do they travel? She asked. Recalling the flight festival I had attended earlier that summer, a car had come with a trail to drive the electrical aircraft back home. And remember, everybody else flew back home. I set out looking for numbers. Skellefteå Airport, which is not the same as Sollefteå, which I mentioned earlier, makes the estimation that with 8,000 starts and landings between August 2021 and October 2025, it is likely to be one of the places in the world where most of the electrical airplanes fly. Great! For how long? How long is the distance? This took a while to find. Finally, I found the news that electrical flights for long distances is far ahead in the future, but flying for about 1 hour is no problem in modern times. In an article by the Research Institute of Sweden, to many known as the acronym RISE, an engineer specialized in electromobility brings up Heart Aerospace. They have their headquarters in California and have so far raised $185 million from tech venture capitalists and other investors and are developing electrical regional flights with 19 seats. It is planned to be commercialized in 2026, technically speaking in 3 days. According to IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, about 40% of the carbon dioxide emission from flights come from the short-distance flights, up to 2,000 kilometers. So the electrical aircrafts are really needed. Then we have Katla Aero, a Swedish electrical drone company. Remarkable name, I must say. Katla is the invincible dragon from Astrid Lindgren novel The Brothers Lionheart. This dragon can only be affected by starvation, nothing else. The Katla drones lift up in the air like a helicopter, which you might expect from standard drones, but flies like an aircraft. That, in turn, will increase the demand for more vertiports, so airports without runways for the kind of technology that is called VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. Katla Aero are expected to start producing electrical airplanes that can lift up to 10 kilograms, and this year to produce an aircraft that can take 2 people. I thought you can count the durability of how far an electrical airplane can go in hours, but the capacity seems to be calculated in kilometers. So, an electrical aircraft expected to bring 2 adults can in theory fly 200 kilometers with a speed of 400 kilometers per hour. And the researchers of course propose that as it will be easier and cheaper to produce more environmentally friendly airplanes that are small, they will also be more easy to share. So if you have a summer house on an island in the Swedish archipelago, and there might be 5 more families, all 5 families can share. And maybe, I'm speculating, that will be common to mention in future real estate ads. The usual real estate agent lingo about that this is a unique property with spectacular views, such a gem. It's only you and 4 other houses on the island. And then it's mentioned that there is a shared electrical airplane, of course. That kind of change, in turn, I'm thinking, should create more charging points in the country that either will be suitable for both cars and airplanes, or maybe these charging stations will be right next to each other, so the airplanes will not only be charged at the airports, and you can charge your car while you charge the airplane that you, for some stretches of time, will have to bring with you in your trail. The journalist in the article I'm reading now proposes that the batteries, which today still have to be very large and hence heavy to offer the capacity to make them interesting to the market at all, maybe can be replaced with fuel cells. The specialist at GKN Aerospace highlights that if we change technologies, we change problems. With the fuel cell, we indeed can fly longer, but with reduced speed, so far for a very short amount of time, and only 150 kilometers per hour. I had a look at their website. GKN Aerospace is a company that manufactures components for space rocket engines, aircraft structures, cabin windows, cables inside of aircrafts, among other things. They are suppliers to aircrafts worldwide. Their factories are in Trollhättan in Sweden, Kongsberg in Norway, in Mexico and the USA. The famous Swedish military aircraft JAS 39 Gripen has an engine called RM12, which this company serves, while also developing the new version of the engine RM16. So, if my new Polish acquaintance had asked me again, I would be able to reply 200 kilometers. That is not far. It is barely half the distance between Stockholm and Helsinki, or Paris and Geneva. But it could almost work almost all the way between Zurich and Stuttgart, Brussels and Amsterdam, Milan, Milano and Bologna, Budapest and Bratislava, almost between Berlin and Hamburg, almost between Warsaw and Krakow, but not yet between Porto and Lisbon, not yet Toulouse and Barcelona, not yet Marseille and Lyon. They are all about 300 or 320 kilometers apart. I recall the discussion I had with an airplane engineer 2 years ago. Would it not be possible to have another aircraft fly up to you and charge your batteries while you are in the air? Tricky, of course. Another proposal from my side was to drop off recharged batteries from the aircraft to a car underneath, which always serves airplanes on their regular routes. The car drives off, the battery is charged, and the cycle is repeated when another aircraft flies up again to refill the batteries anew. This has been tested in the past and was bulky and expensive. Back in Poland, in Wrocław, before departing with my new acquaintance, I told her I had rented a car for tomorrow from the place where there is almost always a guarantee to get hold of a car, the airport. In Wrocław, she replied, the airport is closed. There are no departures, so she was wishing me luck. My booking had actually gone through, so I went there full of hope. The airport was indeed closed, But people still came to work, and even the information point was open. However, they had no idea about which car rentals were in function and could not give me any directions, which makes me wonder about the use of an info point at a closed airport, but it's of course lovely to chat. And this is also the most relaxed airport I have seen in a long time. Staff was walking around very calmly, and over the day, new chairs were being put up for the new cafe. Last time, I was the only passenger in a fully open airport in Kramfors in Sweden. But that airport is maybe the fifth of the size of Wrocław. And my car was ready, and I was very happy to visit about 6 castles that day. I always seek to learn more aircraft vocabulary and different techniques, and I learned recently about the crab landing, also known as crabbing technique. I just love it. That's why I'm using the special theatrical voice. It is used in crosswinds conditions. One part of the technique is putting the angle of the nose of the aircraft into the wind to counter drift and align with the runway only when there is time for touchdown. I don't think I have experienced this on any of my flights, well, flights when I could see through a window myself, but I also believe that my neighbors might have noticed if we were moving in a special way. Not certain how it feels to experience this technique. That would be fun to talk to a pilot about. Regarding clouds, I did learn there are families, which are further divided into types. Cirrus, for example, is their family. Cirrus are made of ice crystals, and that gives them the look of a thin veil, so as wavily thin scarves, sometimes they look like feathers in the sky and point in different directions depending on the wind. In Sweden, they're typically seen at altitudes between 5 and 13 kilometers, and there are 5 typical types. When they look like thin threads, that is a cirrus fibrous, but not if the thin threads end with some kind of hook or tassel, because that makes it cirrus uncius or cirrus floccus. When cirrus get very tight, they are cirrus spissatus. They look grey if you look through them at the sun, and indeed they can be thick enough to not let any sun through. Cirrus can be more red when the sun is low and more grey when in shadow. Fun that clouds can be in shadow of other clouds. I love that in Swedish it is called an assignment. The word is uppdrag, when a cloud clearly proceeds from one type of cloud to another. Cirrus can transform into rain clouds after it has turned into 3 consequent cloud types. Cirrus uncius, the ones that are not just thin lines but have an ending, that make them look like they're skis, and they're sometimes called weather forecast clouds. I call them messenger clouds. They are ahead of other clouds that are about to undergo a transformation, the aforementioned assignment. When Cirrus is found in dense constellations and appear to have towers that grow from a joint base, gives them the name of the tower, Cirrus Castellanus. For many clouds, their shape depends on from which perspective you're looking at them, and they change further depending on turbulence, local winds, their speed, moisture, and temperature conditions. The towers are best seen from the side, for example. If cirrus looks like they come together toward the horizon in some kind of flow, they're usually described as radiatus. And we have landed. This is Düsseldorf, and I must say, this footage of us landing and seeing Düsseldorf almost at night, but still the evening lights are clear enough for us to distinguish the different parts of the city. This was in particular beautiful, so I'm very happy with the footage. Another type of clouds, altocumulus, look like the sky is stuffed, a bit like a mattress, like looking at a mattress in the sky. I'm very happy with this comparison that I came up with on my own. They are not made of ice crystals, but of water droplets, and when passing through them, the passage is likely to feel like turbulence. Altocumulus does not give precipitation, which is an interesting cloud guarantee. Altocumulus can produce virgo, however. Virga are the thin stripes that from a distance look like cloudy rain stripes that come from the cloud, but the stripes never reach far enough for any rain to happen. This very night, when I landed in Düsseldorf, it was very warm. I managed to visit 2 castles the following day, one on the Dutch side and one on the German side. The Dutch castle was planning to have a theme day with hot air balloons, and I was very keen to revisit. It was not possible that September, unfortunately, but in a very niched guide, I read there is a Belgian castle that specializes in hot air balloon competitions. That Belgian castle is only open to the public to host the event one day in July, conditioned by fine weather. If it rains, the castle will not open. There are more castles like this, open rarely for the most different reasons. So of course it would be fun to make a mini documentary called The Castles That Are Almost Never Open, maybe with 7 of them. And the day after tomorrow is the new year. My New Year's resolution is a fun list. Things I would like to do which I have not done before, or doing more of something and the quantity in itself could be challenging in an interesting way. I don't mind if what I had planned one year instead happens later, and some things do take a lot of time. 4 years ago, I wanted to make a ball gown dress with pockets based on a photo I like, and that is a lot of material, big skirt and everything, and you need a lot of space. This year, my maybe most proud invention is the torch tiara, which will complement the dress. Usually, if there is a large gemstone in the middle, it's plastic, or it will be a different kind of tiara, the most commonly stolen tiara in the world. So I would like to replace that gemstone into a torch mechanism, not too uncomfortable. The tiara of my design will shine bright and be pretty, but also be functional. I'm toying with the idea my torch tiara could be a market success. I also imagine how many dads will be woken up from their sweet dreams when their children walk into the bedroom with the torch tiaras on. So now we have discussed this invention, it's becoming clear that the torch tiara should be dimmable. Ideally, I could wear it at a dance, and that's not on my New Year's resolution list, but I would love to go to several balls this coming years in the dresses I have designed myself, enjoy the atmosphere, which is not a nightclub and still dance involved and you can see people, and I could wear my tiara with the light on in a way which doesn't make me banned from such a dance. Thank you for coming along on this journey. See you next time.